You're listening to
They're going to call it a hard foul. They're going to call it a hard foul.
Mike, the Celtics lost on Saturday night to the Memphis Grizzlies after 5 games and 7 nights, something we predicted on this show a week before it was going to happen. The 5-game and 7 nights, no NBA team can escape that demise, it seems. And
well, Jim, it's because they took too many threes and they shoot too many threes. And when they shoot all those threes, they're not going to win championships. That's going to be their demise. Coach Mazzulla's an idiot.
We got Tony Maz on the line. Tony, you have anything racist you want to add? The floor is yours for views on the 3-point shot. Something.
All right. I didn't expect that as your response.
Particularly about stealing cars.
Oh, God.
Yeah, no. So, we can hit on. I don't listen to that show, but I did see a clip on Twitter. There was like a 13-minute clip that I replied to, which I probably shouldn't. But talking about the Celtics' inability or the coach's inability to adjust to what the Memphis did and leaving Holiday open for 3 all game long, and how the Celtics take too many threes and they just hell-bent on that philosophy. And if they lose, it's going to be because of the coach and that they're too proud to change their ways. We can tackle that. It's certainly Mike too. It's their style of play has been criticized, not just by Felger and Maz, but Nick Wright, the guy over on Fox Sports, whatever it's called, that station there, and the guy that hates the Celtics, commented on the beginning of the season. I think it's been a talking point. That's been a problem with the league. I don't see it as much as other people do. I think it's the wide openness of the league right now has increased scoring, has increased the effort level, and has increased the quality of play and each and every night. But maybe I'm whistling past the graveyard here on that. But Mike, let's start with these games over the weekend, which are both really, I thought, really good basketball games. Milwaukee and Memphis. You pick a game, go with whatever direction. There's a ton of things we can talk about from both. But what are your main takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, the Milwaukee game was a great game, but I'll start with the most recent one. It was also a really good game. Memphis. I want to start with that Scales and Drew Carter are terrible.
I agree with this. Go ahead.
They're just terrible. There's things that they don't pick up on that are happening in the game because they're just like sitting there, kissing each other. Scales is more interested in the other team than the Celtics, and it was so obvious during the Memphis game. Like, he loved Memphis. It's one thing to talk about how good the team is. Another thing, just like fall in love with them over and over again, without really breaking the game down. My second point about the Memphis game is that their game plan was similar to what Golden State did against Jaylen Brown last year, except they did it with Drew Holiday. I think they looked at the numbers, despite Drew actually shooting the ball pretty well recently. His numbers overall, like around 30% from 3 this season. I'm sure those numbers dipped.
Yeah.
Or to leave him open. And it was successful. I don't know how sustainable that is with a proven NBA veteran like Holiday, but I think that's why the Celtics lost. I think he ended up going like 5 for like 19 from the field. And
Tatum was 1 for 10 too. So like your best player also struggled.
Your best player struggled too.
I think it's easy to pile on Drew for this, but
it is because he was left wide open and he missed wide open looks, quite a bit of them. And then he started forcing. So it almost got into his head where he started forcing going to the paint against bigs, and he just didn't have it. And in that first half, I thought Porzingis was horrible. And I thought he was hurt because it looked like he was running in mud.
Yeah.
Maybe he just wasn't ready to go, because in the second half, he obviously looked much better.
He did.
I think the Celtics had tired legs and were like my other part of this, those are the reasons I think they lost is the poor shooting. Obviously, you go 17 for 60 from three. That's not good. Um, I thought their defense wasn't great, but I also thought that they played really hard for a team on 5 nights and
I
seven.
thought, yeah,
Yeah, 5 games and 7 nights, and like it was easy to let go of the rope and get blown out, and they didn't. Um,
In
so
fact, they came
yeah,
back and took the lead after being down 14 midway through that fourth quarter. And
and
then,
while you're missing all these wide open threes, you had John Morant go 4 for 4. I think Jaron Jackson went 4 for 5 from three. Um, so yeah,
yeah, they were right in the game despite all of that with about 2, 3 minutes to go where they were down two and then Memphis went on a run there at the end of the game. But I the biggest difference, so the holiday thing I'm going to hit on in a minute, but you went into halftime, I think, with your two stars combined for like 11 points. And their two stars were playing great. And Jared Jackson in the fourth quarter was amazing. And he took it to Porzingis, going to the paint just about every 3 or 4 times in a row where, he was so quick with his release. And you never see this with Porzingis. And I think this is more credit to Jackson than it is as the knock on Porzingis, that he almost was surprising Porzingis when he got his shot off down when he would get him into the paint. It would just happen so fast, and he would hit that little 8-foot hook. I think he did it 3 times in a row. And he would just take him off the dribble, get to his spot, and do it. They were really, really good, those two guys. Jackson in particular in the fourth quarter, and Morant through the first three was fantastic. I mean, he was electric. That dunk he had was amazing. It was, show-stopping type shit. He had another turnover that led to a layup, which was just, a thing of beauty to watch. A steal that led to a layup, a turnover by the Celtics. So, like, those two were great. Our two guys until the fourth quarter. Jaylen Brown somewhat in the third quarter. Didn't really get going until then. Now, the holiday stuff, look, he has not shot the ball anywhere near what he did last year from three. In the corner last year, he
not
was
at all.
60% from three. We're a quarter away through the season, which is, a decent amount of time. But over the previous 3, 4 seasons, he's been close to 40% three-point shooter overall. This year, he's not that. He's somewhere around 32%. So it's been a little bit of a struggle for him. I do want to remind people that actually we did a pod last year wondering, is Drew Holiday playing up to expectations? Would we do the trade for him for Marcus Smart straight up? And we had questions about what he was given to the Celtics. And then lo and behold, in the playoffs, you could have made an argument at times he was their best player, both on the defensive end and shots he made and going to the hoop and things he does. The night before against Milwaukee, he played really well, especially late in that game. His three-point shooting still wasn't great, but he made plays all over the place. Made the big jump shot where he was run off the three-point line late in the fourth quarter. One dribble drive and hit a wide open two from about 20 feet out that really iced the game. I'll just say this, like it kind of made sense what Memphis did last night, the way he's been shooting. It's also coming off a back-to-back of a highly intense game, and he's in his mid-30s. If you're gonna pick a guy that's gonna struggle for the Celtics this season and off a back-to-back, when you factor in age, the way things have been going this year, he was the obvious choice. And it worked out for Memphis. I would say this to teams that think about rolling the dice like that against him in the playoffs, go for it. Take your chances.
Yeah.
I have full confidence in Drew Holiday will be there to make big plays in big moments based off of what I saw last year, especially with the pressure off, with so many weapons the Celtics have on the floor. So I'll just, it was unfortunate. You kind of felt for him. I also felt like, not this particular situation where he struggled from shooting so much last year, but we were questioning the impact he was having during the regular season. And it turned out to be a really foolish question to ask, because when the lights got bright, he was awesome. he was awesome for them last year, and I have no reason to believe that won't be the case. Now he's in his mid-30s. He's a smaller guy. Is there a chance that he just falls off a cliff at some point? There's always that chance. I haven't seen that in his overall game this year. I think he's been pretty solid. And Missoula did on Saturday. He made an adjustment. The last 7 minutes of the game, he went with Peyton Pritchard, who hit some shots and kept them close. But do I think that impacted them on the defensive end, not having Holiday out there? Of course it did. Of course it did. But those are the choices you make. So a loss, an entertaining game, not one that bothered me all that much. Good job by Memphis. They're a very well coached team. They're really skilled, talented team that can put the ball to the floor and shoot and can beat you up inside if they have to. Defend well. They're going to be a tough out in the playoffs. But they got the Celtics at the right time. Mike, let's talk about Friday night. Milwaukee Celtics. Floor is yours.
Excuse me, Jim. I have something in my throat. So why don't we start with you? Because, yeah.
Sure. So I thought it was, as Mike gets whatever he swallowed, hopefully, nothing that disgusting out of his mouth. But the Celtics Bucks game, I thought this was one of the best games of the season. It was another game where the Celtics really kind of struggled to shoot. Particularly their role players. Derek White didn't have it. Al Horford, until the very end, really didn't have it.
Big three at the end.
Peyton Pritchard didn't have it.
Peyton Pritchard didn't have anything.
Didn't have anything. Hauser was actually really good and then got hurt. He was missed against Memphis. You could feel that during that game. He was missed against Memphis. And, of course, you didn't have KP playing at all. So it really fell on the shoulders of your two best players. And those two guys, through three quarters, kept you in a game when the other team's two superstars were also really, really good. And especially Lillard. But Giannis, I wouldn't say it was his best game, but he was still good. And so you really had this great back and forth. It was a grind. Milwaukee's half-court defense was pretty good, but they were also bailed out, I thought, a bunch by the Celtics missing some really makeable shots. But their half-court defense wasn't bad. The Celtics rebounded the ball well. They did all the little things to really not let Milwaukee ever expand that lead where it was going to get too tough. Then you get into the fourth quarter in the last 5 minutes of the game, and the Celtics, I thought, just executed almost brilliantly on both sides of the ball. You had that moment of the sub 5 minute mark where Brown picks up Dame Lillard, basically full court, is chest to chest with him. They force that wild three that Lillard wanted a foul on, and Tatum goes coast to coast for a layup. And I think that either put the Celtics down one or gave them the first lead of the fourth quarter. And then you had things like the Horford three off the break, the great White defensive rebound, the Holiday shot that we talked about in the last segment again. So they just executed everything down the stretch against these guys. But it was all built off of the two best players playing so well, particularly Tatum. Tatum was awesome in that fourth quarter. I think he was 4 for 4, 14 points, had a 4-point play. He was magnificent all fourth quarter. And I thought the role players, as you see so often in the NBA, late in the games now, the pressure's off. Your two best guys are going so well. They make enough plays where you win the game. And I just thought the Celtics executed, and it was one of those games, I think if you're a Milwaukee Bucks fan, you just kind of look at it and say, okay, the most interesting thing we can have about this season is we fight to get into the playoffs, and maybe we get to round two. But this was a game where our two best players played really well, and we still can't beat these guys. This season isn't ending the way we kind of hoped at some point. I think that was the message sent to Milwaukee and their fans on that Saturday night. And again, it was 3 games. They got beat. by the Celtics, and none of them did the Celtics have Porzingis against them. So,
And the NBA fans are delusional. And Milwaukee fans, I'm telling you right now, they're sitting there saying, well, when Chris Middleton's fully healthy, we're the better team. They're delusional. That's the way we are. But I do think that was the actual message that was sent. And it's a difference between two nights. Tatum goes bananas in the fourth quarter against Milwaukee. He doesn't give you a ton in the fourth quarter against Memphis, and you're able to make stops against Milwaukee, and you weren't really able to make stops against Memphis. It was a gutsy performance by the Celtics against Milwaukee, and it was a game that they needed, and I think they knew they needed it, because going into that second night of the back-to-back, I think they had it in the back of their minds that, no, this is our fifth game in 7 nights. We have to win the first one here, and that was a real tough back-to-back. You know, you're playing a hungry Milwaukee team once again.
mm-hmm.
And I do want to give the Bucks a little bit more credit in their half-court defense. I thought I don't know how much of it was actual, like, talent, but I think that their size gave the Celtics problems when the game slowed down. But when the Celtics started rebounding in that fourth quarter and they started playing with some pace, and it wasn't always running for the fast break, it was running to get into your sets quicker.
Mm-hmm.
Their offense was executing at a much higher level. And beyond the 14 points, Tatum had a few assists in that fourth quarter and about 4 or 5 rebounds as well. So he really just took over that game. And it's the same problem that the Bucks are always going to have against Boston. They'll be able to try to bully us inside with Giannis. But Lopez has taken a step back where he doesn't post up as much anymore. He's not as effective offensively that he used to be against the Celtics. And on the defensive end, Milwaukee really just doesn't have guys to cover Brown and Tatum. And the Celtics can go after Dame.
They had Green
whenever they want.
Tatum at one point, which was blowing my mind. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry for interrupting, but
who did they have guarding him?
The white guy, their shooter there, Green.
Yeah. I mean, you got to try something, right? I guess, like, why not try this guy? Because nothing else is working. So, I mean, I don't know what Doc is supposed to do other than really push for them to get some wing defenders. And looking around the NBA, they just don't exist. Yeah. They don't exist on cheap contracts. So I was a great win for Boston because, once again, a team with a lot of talent came in and really gave you everything they had, and it wasn't enough. And quite honestly, Jim, they almost won the game against Memphis too. I was impressed with this past week. I was. I thought the Celtics played a lot of good basketball during a tough stretch.
Yeah, even in the 2 losses, like I know the Cleveland game, it just kind of fell apart at the end, but that was a lot to do with Donovan Mitchell just.
And didn't Jaylen Brown not play?
Jaylen Brown didn't play in that game. And so you had Donovan Mitchell just kind of go unconscious. And I think you were down Jaylen Brown and Derek White because Derek White's foot was sprained. But either way, even if they weren't down White, you know, you lost that game where a superstar went nuts and they were at home and you had already beat them. And then you lose the front end and you lose the back end of this 5 against 7 against 2 good teams.
Really good teams.
One that I really underrated in Cleveland. They're much better than, you know, I gave them credit for on earlier pods. And then this Memphis team that's, you know, a really good team. And you had a chance to win both. Probably when you had really no business winning the last one anyways against Memphis, but you had a chance to win both. So, you know, not perfect. There's things to criticize in both those games. There's things to criticize in the wins, but I thought they continued to be impressive. And they are just so much better too, Mike. And I do want to hit on Giannis and being a dirty player in this pod in just a moment too, but they're just so much better. And I know they haven't been perfect in kind of close and late situations than they have in the past. And some of that's by necessity. They played a lot more this season, it feels like. You I don't think the point differential is quite what it was last year, which I think was like over
Of
10 points
course it
a
isn't.
game. But
It's not even close.
but they getting everyone's best shot, and you know, I look at that Milwaukee game where they were pretty perfect down the stretch, and then in that Cleveland game, maybe not so much, but that had more to do with Donovan Mitchell. And then when they got down, they executed almost brilliantly. Pritchard hit that three, they made all their free throws, and if Pritchard doesn't leave the line early, they were getting that offensive
Oh, I
rebound off
know.
that
That was
free
so
throw.
close. That was
So
so
they
close.
really do execute with a great deal of poise when the game is on the line now.
Yeah,
Um, and they get to their spots and they do well. And, what does that mean come the playoffs? I think it probably means good things. But at the same time, we were saying last year that we were worried about how they would do down the stretch of games, and they were brilliant against Indiana's. So maybe it works both ways. I don't know, but it's been interesting. It's been a different season than what we've had last year, but they're still winning the same amount of games, just by not the same amount of points, I guess.
yeah, and I think this year compared to last year, Sam Hauser wasn't hurt,
Hmm.
and he's been hurt for most of the season. Jalen
Porzingis,
Brown,
yeah.
Jalen Brown wasn't hurt, and he's certainly been hurt this season.
Mhm.
Obviously, Porzingis. Um, the one thing you've seen serious improvements on was obviously Peyton Pritchard has taken like leaps as a player,
Yeah.
obviously. But I think these injuries have certainly impacted their overall level of play. And that would be one of the things to keep an eye on this season. Are these lingering injuries going to catch up to them? And in the past, as Celtic fans, I think we all have PTSD over lingering injuries. So we know what can happen. We know how it can derail a season right in front of your eyes, where the guy's out there playing, and he's not that guy. He's got all these injuries going on, and you're just watching that player not perform in the biggest moment because they just don't have it. So, but yeah, outside of that, they've been fantastic. Maybe they're I think their half court defense could pick up. Obviously, Porzingis helps that. Their defensive rebounding, and obviously, one thing that Memphis really exposed is their on-ball defense and getting beat to the basket. Is something that they got to clean up. They weren't ready for that style of play that Memphis
No,
does. They
no.
weren't ready for it. But you're not ready for it until you do it. So they got tape to look at now. They know there's things to work on. And also, it was their fifth game in 7 days. So
Yeah, and the two stars sometimes you just got to tip your cap to the other team too, and the two stars were really, really good in that game. Like Giannis Antetokounmpo, I think there really needs to be a conversation league wide about this guy soon, and not the same glowing terms that he always gets. And he's been awesome, obviously, as a player, but he's a dirty player. There were three instances, and so we go off the last Celtics game where there was multiple instances. Three instances in this game were either deliberate or really borderline. Um, you had the elbow to Holiday in that first half.
yeah,
Um, you had Brown taking him to the hoop, giving him the business and giving him the too small sign, and then Giannis throwing an elbow to his face deliberately before the ball comes inbounds. Brown's actually the one that picks up the tee because he points at him and tells him, "Don't ever do that to me again." And then 2 plays later, Giannis drives to the hoop and he grabs Al and throws him down when he's going down.
and he
And,
didn't get a
and
foul for
that
any of
that
these.
and he didn't get called for any of these, just like he didn't get called for the elbow in the face against Brown in the last game, and the reckless closeout on Tatum on the three he didn't get called on. And there was another instance too. And there is just, there are times where he's just so big and strong he goes to the hoop, it looks worse than it is. But there are this extra cheap shit that he does with his size and his strength. he's risking getting someone really hurt,
Yeah.
whether it's his intention or not. Al falls the wrong way when he's getting pulled down there. That could be an elbow. These are just things that could happen. And I the league at this point to not have a heightened awareness for this type of stuff that he continuously does and not call him for it ever is maddening. And I just to me I used to call him borderline, but there's been enough out there now where I think he plays dirty. I think he plays dirty with the intent to I don't know if it's to injure, but to harm.
I think he's been playing dirty, and I don't know if the league's going to wise up to him. I mean, the fact that, and there's so many games we watched this guy play against Boston where he has no fouls called on him at all.
Yeah.
Just none. I don't understand why he gets what the love that he gets, but he's in the last two games against Boston, he's almost hurt people. And he's almost hurt your best player in Tatum. And they were reckless, dirty plays. Some of them may be intentional, some of them might not be intentional, but at the end of the day, they gotta start holding this guy accountable. If he connected hard on that elbow to Jaylen Brown to his face, I mean that could seriously injure somebody. So yeah, I don't like the way he plays anymore. I'm not the biggest fan of him like I used to be. I think ever since they won a championship, he's gone downhill a little bit in likability as a player. So
Yeah, there's been instances, that whole thing with Halliburton with the ball last year at the end of the game too. There's even been
Chasing,
stuff
yeah.
after the game where he's looked like a fool. And his brother certainly behaves like a fool on the bench and actually has his own podcast. Did you know that Giannis has that guy who
Well, Jimmy
you
B,
shouldn't even be in the
yeah.
league,
Mhm.
And in his last podcast, he said Peyton Pritchard's the guy that scares him the most on the Celtics. So it shows just how well their brains work. Mike, are you ready?
Yeah,
Are you ready for advice with Mike? Because we have a question from Jay in Salem,
do it.
Massachusetts. It comes from Jay in Salem, Mass.
Yeah, Salem.
A friend of mine has two hamsters that are clearly gay. He wants to know how he tells his kids that the hamsters are gay.
How he tells his kids
Yes, he needs to know.
that his friend's hamster's gay?
No, well, his friend went to him. He has two hamsters,
Yeah.
and the two hamsters are both male and in love with each other.
Yeah.
And so, the kids have seen them doing things that hamsters do while they're in love. And
But the hamsters are having sex with each other?
the hamsters might be having a little hanky panky. And the friends.
I've never
parents
seen that. I've seen hamsters. I've never seen them in action.
The friend's parents wants
Usually
to
they're
know.
running in circles and like eating
Yeah.
everything in sight.
Yeah, so the friend's parents want to know, like, do I tell my kids that the hamsters are gay? How do I explain that there are gay hamsters? I don't know the ages of the kids, but I imagine they're younger. So, Mike, floor is yours to give advice on talking to kids about gay hamsters.
I owned a hamster once, Jim.
I did too. It died. It actually, it was kind of my fault that it died too. Story for another time.
Mine was definitely my fault. It froze to death. My hamster froze to death. I had it up in the windowsill in our basement room, and it froze to death.
Yeah, it did. It did.
I mean, how long did I go without checking on that hamster for it to freeze to death? Is pretty bad. My advice.
I put
Go ahead.
I put a hamster that I got the girls in the cellar part of the basement, not the finished part, and I put a blanket over it, and then I got to take the blanket out, and I think it might have suffocated. Yeah, definitely my fault. Didn't mean to. His name was Pinky. He was a hell of a guy. But yeah, he's no longer. That's
well,
my
first I would Google would Google to make sure that the information is accurate. I would look up, can hamsters be gay?
Okay.
Because I believe we do research on everything now. So there's probably some research out there that tells you, biologically, if they have the capability to do that or not, or if they just have, sex for reproduction. So, if the answer is yes, then you might have some gay hamsters on your hands. I think
So it says
if the
here that
kids,
hamsters cannot be gay, that gay is a human term, but there has been some documented homosexual behavior
okay,
between hamsters. So yes.
so they can do it. Um, well, I think that's important information because obviously hamsters can't be gay, right? That's what Google said. So you wouldn't tell your kids that they're gay. Um, you would tell them that they're engaging in premarital sex, and that's
Oh.
not okay.
What happens? What happens if hamsters engage in premarital sex? Because this is important part of the advice section, I think, of this pod.
Then you rot in hell.
Oh, we're back to hell. Every bit of advice Mike gives leads you back to hell. Is it? So there's a there's a hamster hell. I guess.
Now listen, kids. You're gonna get these feelings inside, and they're gonna make you feel like you need to do something. But remember, these are choices that you make, that these hamsters made, and you cannot engage in these activities until the sanctity of marriage is okay. So there's an opportunity here to really teach the kids, and maybe you have like a wedding ceremony between these two hamsters and get them married. You talk about healthy families, you talk about healthy sex and healthy choices. You can really get into it. Like we're helping to form an environment for these hamsters so that they understand that they need to fall in love before they make these decisions. Um, and I think that's the route you take.
Okay. Okay. So you wouldn't just tell, the two the kids that, it's okay, the two hamsters just love each other and end the conversation like that.
No,
You would
because
get into the premarital sex, even though hamsters don't get married because
yeah,
they're fucking hamsters, and then one of them might go to hell.
I think there's a lesson to be taught in every situation. You can tell your kids that it's beautiful that these two male hamsters are in love with each other, and that's okay, but it's not okay to engage in sex before marriage
Okay.
because then you can rot in hell.
Okay.
I think we have to go back to fair tactics with these kids. They're getting too much. They're all getting horned up and sexed up from TikTok. We got to go back to old strategies, old school strategies to keep them away from touching each other.
All right. Okay. Do we have time for one more, or we want to save it to the next pod?
Sure. We have one more. Yeah, I'm ready for it.
You want to do one more? It's got to be quick. We've gone a little long here. All right. So this one is: a flattering picture of my butt has made its way online. A very flattering picture of my butt, and my coworkers have found it. How do I earn back their respect?
How do you earn back their respect? I mean, why did you lose their respect?
Well, now they'll like. I guess they can just think about their butt, this person's butt. This they just looking at it, talking about how wonderful it is, and they don't see this person as a person anymore. They just see it as a nice ass.
Embrace it. There's a lot of people out there who've made their butts into a lot of money for them. So I just would embrace it. I would embrace it, and wear tight jeans to work. Let it flow. Just leave it out there. I would embrace
the advice they're looking for is they don't want to be just seen as a nice butt. They want to be seen as a full person.
All right. Well, maybe you need to step up at work and you get more stuff done. You need to take on more leadership roles and step into situations and take on challenges and really put yourself out there. Do something great to get the attention away from your butt and onto who you are as a person.
That's all. It's really all you can do, right? Because you can't go ahead and leave the job because the internet's forever. They're gonna find that
Yeah.
butt picture anywhere you go.
And I think if people, if we're being serious, if people are like sharing pictures of your butt at work, you're gonna be talking to HR.
Well,
Like
no,
if
no,
we're being,
no.
if we're gonna be serious about this stuff, like
But
you
what
know,
if it's already online? People just found it and saw it.
yeah, I mean that's one thing. But if they're
Yeah,
bringing it up at work, that's
yeah.
not
Then you got to
okay.
go to HR. Yeah,
Yeah, or
yeah.
you go to them directly, have a conversation in their office, and be like, I didn't want this to be on the internet. It is, but you need to stop having inappropriate conversations about me. It's not okay. You know.
But see, that's actually a pretty good bit of advice, Mike. And that doesn't lead to someone going to hell either. It's
Well,
under.
Jim, it all depends on how that bot ended up on the internet. If you want to get
Oh
into,
God! All right. Well. Pastor Mike, advice with Pastor Mike.
listen though, we really need some, especially to our friends and family out there that are listening.
Or
Email.
anyone.
What is it? Email the Facebook page, DM the Facebook page, DM Jimmy on
So the
Twitter.
the email is ahadfile@gmail.com, or we're on Facebook. You can hit us a messenger there, or direct message on Twitter or Instagram, or we're pretty much everywhere. You go right to our
Yeah,
website
and to our
as
listener,
well.
Jake, we definitely saw your message about the Celtics rebounding and boxing out. We'll touch on that in the next pod, as well. So thank you so much for sending that question in.
All right. All right, everyone. We'll talk soon.